audio recorded, available on the Eastham website at eastham-ma.gov and on Channel 18. And this is a Zoom meeting pursuant to the emergency orders of Governor Baker. All right, so the first item of business would be the minutes that Rich sent out, and I forwarded to all. Does anyone have any comments, changes, corrections, deletions from the minutes? Hearing none, do I hear?
I have my hand up.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mary.
But yeah, I would just like to add, I want to thank Rich for doing it, number one. But I just want to add at the end that we adjourned at 6:40 p.m. We usually give the time that we start, and I think we should show the time that we finish.
All right. With that change, any others? Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion that the minutes of you see when was it?
August 11th.
August 11th.
Be approved. Thank you.
I second the motion.
And Rich was the second. Rick, I mean.
Rick.
Right. So a roll call vote. Peter.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
Rick.
Yes.
Roy.
Yes.
George.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
And Jerry is a yes, 8-0. Okay, the next item on the agenda, yeah, I'll turn it over to Rich. It's the, hopefully you have the slides and concerning the financial management plan policies. And we had them last meeting, and we were going to go over them again for this one and try and do a vote today of a recommendation for the next select board meeting on them. So Rich, I'll turn it over to you. You have the floor.
All right, I'll just I'll bring up the policies and just highlight in a discussion with Roy some suggestions he had, and of course if he wants to comment he can, but I'll just point out where they were changed. And I did send these to you on email yesterday. Everybody see the screen okay?
Yep.
Okay. So obviously the first thing was I couldn't figure out how to not have it on the table of contents, but starting on page 1, we did add page numbers. Under the introduction and scope, I forget the exact original number. I think it was originally number 3 or 4. We reordered it so that is now number 7. 1 through 6 seem logical in the lead up to item 7 now, but no change in the text or anything. Roy had mentioned, and we had discussed briefly at the meeting last time, about wanting to put something in here about standards of conduct and code of ethics. And so we've added number 5 to the general financial management policy. I don't think we had any changes here in the budget policy. Roy, did you have a comment, just a discussion point on revenue policy? No substantive changes on the revenue policy, but Roy, did you have a comment on that?
No, I think something you and I just discussed through, and I'm fine with the way it reads right now.
Okay. We talked a little bit about the financial planning policy. I don't think we really had any change in it, but we just talked about the timing of it, you know, in a perfect world. And once we get rolling with laying things out the way I want them to ultimately be, that's something that we'd be doing after a spring town meeting and before the next budget cycle starts. So probably financial planning and looking at a 5-year projection of sometime in the summer or early fall would be the timeline. And Roy and I talked about that for a bit. We also talked about number 3, you know, looking at the changes in the tax levy and what's available for revenues in the upcoming budget would be part of that 5-year projection. We talked a little bit about just some of the definitions in the reserve policy, but no changes. And no real changes to the contingent liability policy. So that was it. We had a good discussion, and Roy, I'll leave it to you to summarize any feedback you had, but I thought it went well, and I had no issues with his questions or comments, and we're able to accommodate the suggestions into the revised draft.
I found the policies to be very thorough and very well organized. And just reading through that booklet that you sent us from the Division of Local Services, the content and the policies match up well to a lot of the items you're going to be covering in terms of what the Division of Local Services recommendations were. So I think it's fine.
They got their recommendations from me about 10 years ago, Roy, so I'm glad
Really?
they match up.
Well, it's pretty close. I give you a lot of credit.
Things changing. Tom?
I had a question as I was going over this afternoon, and I was wondering if it would make sense or be beneficial to include in the objectives, we have 1 through 10, a reference to cost savings, continuously looking for cost savings, that's a stated objective of the town. It happens. Just a couple of meetings ago, Rich was talking to us about a possible program to save money, big money potentially, with the pension obligation, right? And then I heard another thing recently. Actually, I think this was a Rich thing too, but I think it was Jackie that mentioned it at a select board meeting, saying that going out to bid for audits. Was it audit services, Rich?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a 4-year program, and it saved $58,000. So things like that happen. And then, and there was recently another thing I just remembered was last time we mentioned something about a change, hiring in the police department that saved some money. I don't recall how much or whatever, but those things happen all the time. But they're to be encouraged as far as I'm concerned. But whether or not it should or would be helpful to be stated as an objective. It might be implied in a number of other things, but I just thought I'd throw it out there and get other comments about that.
Yeah, I thought it's implied. It's the very first one in my mind, but maybe if you wanted it more explicit.
Would that be covered under, as you just mentioned, Rich, would that be covered under number 1 to provide value to the residents?
Yeah, and on a efficiently and cost effectively.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And potentially in number 4, to present operating principles that minimize the cost of government, things like that, right?
Number 5.
Number 5, yeah. Okay.
Oh, what did I say?
4.
But 4
That's
does too,
I'm
because
reading right off the list of
it's
on
fiscal-
page 2.
there's significant fiscal importance, so.
Yeah, I think
it's
that,
covered.
Tom, do you think would you still favor something more explicit?
I was just looking for everybody else's comment. If I was doing it for myself, I'd probably have it in there so that it was front and center for everybody who works for the town, so the taxpayers know we are always looking for these opportunities. We spend a lot of money, we take on a lot of projects, but you should know that we're always looking for opportunities to reduce costs, without sacrificing quality, that kind of thing. But if everybody's satisfied as a committee that it's implied in the things that are already referenced there, I'm fine with that.
I think number 1 is the best of all, to me, in that regard.
I think 1, and then I think 5 is pretty direct too.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Agreed.
You with me?
All right. I'm going to go a little outside the committee here for a sec. Art, what do you think, looking at it from the perspective of, this is going to be on your plate shortly, do you think that the select board might want something a little bit more explicit, or that these numbers, these statements are already here are sufficient?
Personally, I would want something more explicit, but I'm not sure what the select board would say. And I don't have the document in front of me, so I'm not sure exactly what those two lines that you quoted were.
Okay. Well, the first one is to provide value to the residents, business owners, and visitors to the town for each tax dollar by delivering quality services efficiently and on a cost-effective basis. That's
Okay.
number one. And then number 5 that everyone's talked about is to present operating principles that minimize the cost of government and financial risk.
I would add, personally, I would add something that more around what Tom said in terms of very, very specific, continually look to improve costs, continually look to reduce costs where it's appropriate. Something like that. I think another line of that's not worth anything, and it's to be very, very clear that, cost reduction is an important part of the financial management process. That's my opinion, though. So, I mean.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's that's right. And you don't have a vote on this go round. You'd have it on the next.
I know that.
Jerry?
Yes.
I agree with those who thought that 1 and 5 did the job very well. If we chose to do an additionally specific comment, statement, as Tom and Art are suggesting, I would want to be extremely careful that it's not a standalone, we want to lower costs, because there will be many needs to expand programs, add new programs. And what I liked about 1 and 5 is it says, what we want to do is deliver what we think we need in the most cost-efficient manner and giving the most value. So that combines, we'll do what we need to do, but by God, we want to do it in a very cost-efficient manner. And I like that, and it doesn't get us into the risk of people arguing, enough new programs, enough this. I mean, the select board and the town meeting always consider whether we can afford a program. And 1 and 5 basically tell us, when you decide you need a program, run it well. And run it well, or come up with creative ideas like Rich has done structurally to help reduce costs in the future. So personally, I'm satisfied with what we have, but if we add something in addition, I'd like to see us avoid that trap.
I understand. Yeah, you don't want somebody to say, hey, your guideline number 6 says you're going to reduce costs and you're not doing it, you're adding costs. I understand.
But if Tom and Art, have words that we could consider, right now, we're considering a concept and it's hard to kind of grab, put your arms around it.
Jerry, George has his hand up, but I guess I
George.
would say, depending on what George and Art's follow-up on, I'm amenable to adding perhaps to number 1 at the end, something along the lines of, can look for continuous improvement and cost of operations or something like that.
I could live with that.
That'd be fine.
Yeah, I think there's a George.
Yeah, I'd like to ask for an editing change on page 8. This is under financial planning policies.
Are we on to something different than what we were just discussing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't we finish?
Let's finish. Yeah, let's see what we've got on this one. Tom, what do you think about the verbiage that Rich just discussed?
I'd be fine with that. I think it conveys, the message. I think that's fine. And I certainly wouldn't want to add something that gets us into a real slippery slope.
Right, right.
So
So,
that would be
anyway-
fine with me. Art, what do you think?
Well, Art will get his 2 cents later, but I think it goes in that direction, and this is just a recommendation to the select board, but go ahead,
Okay.
Art, what do you think? Is that,
I think that it's a given that anything that we do, we want to do in the most cost-effective manner. And I think you have to state that, okay? But what I'm thinking is that more in the lines of what Rich said, continuous improvement. Continually look at your operations to see where it might be appropriate to reduce cost. And that's what I'm more focused on than, reducing costs per se. It's continually looking for opportunities like, okay, we're only single bidding this particular project. Let's go out and multiple bid it. Or, we're spending a lot of money to clean the building. Maybe we should do something. This continuous improvement that focuses on reducing costs is what my thought was.
well, I think Rich's statement sort had that, I think, the add-on had that, so I think that
Does. Yeah, it
anyone
does.
have more discussion on this point that Tom initially raised?
I'd like to have Rich repeat what his thoughts were for the additional verbiage for number 1.
Yeah, I just actually typed it out. So how about a number 1 that says, to provide value to the residents, business owners, and visitors to the town for each tax dollar by delivering quality services efficiently and on a cost-effective basis, and to seek opportunities for continuous improvement in cost and service delivery.
And to seek opportunities, read that again, please.
For continuous improvement
Mhm.
in cost and service delivery.
I like that.
All right, I like it. Any other comments? Any further discussion on this specific point? Anyone?
Well, are we
All
going to put it to bed or not? Are we going to accept it or not, or vote on it or
Yeah,
not?
okay. Steve,
I
would-
move we accept as a recommendation to the select board that they add the proposed language that Rich just provided.
All right.
Second.
The second was from Tom. Okay. All right, go for the roll call on that. Peter? You're muted, Pete.
Yes.
Mary?
I think number 1 is sufficient,
Okay, so
as
you would,
already written.
without the addition, okay.
Right.
All right, Rick,
Yes.
Roy,
Yes,
George,
Yes,
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and it's, Jerry's yes, 7-1 on that, right, for that. Now, we'll go, George, you were on page, was it page 8, you said?
page 8, yes. The final paragraph on that page, paragraph 5, there are 2 sentences in that paragraph. And I think that each of the 2 sentences covers a separate function. And I think it's important to not conflate those 2 ideas. So my suggestion is that the second sentence be presented as a separate paragraph 6. The first sentence really talks about compliance with state and audit requirements, but the second sentence talks about doing an annual report card on how the town has performed in terms of doing the things that the financial policies require. And I think that second concept is important, particularly to the credit rating agencies in the context of seeing this new financial policy being adopted. So I would ask that that be broken out as a separate paragraph 6.
Could you tell me again what page you're on? What, I
Page
mean,
8, page 8.
I don't have, I have the old thing and it's not marked. So what,
Well, the old one isn't numbered.
I know it isn't, so I'm looking.
It's paragraph 5. It's
No,
it's section 5.
Section 5.
Oh, section-
Five,
Financial
Financial-
planning policy.
Okay,
Yeah.
Number 5.
thank you.
if you look at number 5 down at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, I see it.
So Jerry, I've split that out already, if the board would like. So the first sentence, town administrator shall provide for completion of year-end financial reports as required by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and for a year-end financial audit is number 5. And then starting with analysis and reporting of key results is now number 6, if you'd like to keep it that way.
I don't have any problem with that split. Anybody else have any comments on that? On what George proposed? All right. We'll keep that, instead of doing a vote on every several, we'll keep it, oh, George, your hand's up? Or did you forget to take it down?
Got it down.
All right, you have any other comments? We'll remember that one because that'll be included in our final vote. Any other comments on this? Roy?
Yeah, just a simple one on page 5, item 9. I think, should selectmen be select board?
Yep, good catch.
Yeah.
And we probably need a verb there too.
All right. Yeah,
Select board you'd say select board will set specific budget priorities.
I'm
Okay.
okay with that. Mhm.
yeah. Any other, Steve?
Thank you,
Your
Jerry.
hand's up, Steve?
Yes. I have a question for Rich. I was happy to hear Roy's judgment about this, but I'd like to hear from Rich too. Do you feel that you accepted all the recommendations from that management report that was done that we're going to discuss later with respect to the financial policies and procedures? Or were there any that in your best judgment you felt was not the wise thing to do?
Honestly, I didn't go back and refer back to exactly to what that says. I'm obviously very familiar with their normal recommendations, how they write it up from report to report, sometimes changes on a whim. So I can go back, but I'm very comfortable with these are the things that DOR hopes to have. Did we lose Jerry? Yeah, bring Jerry back in. Let me just take a quick look at it right now. Budget process, we've covered. Long-term, short-term goals, monitoring. I mean, some of this is overly specific in my mind, like a budget calendar, that's part of our process. I don't know that you need a policy on that. Balanced budgets, sustainable budgets, that's referenced in our policies. Reserves, I think we've covered. I guess we didn't define acceptable and prohibited uses along with course of action when free cash falls below the desired target. That's very hard to put in a policy, in my experience. There may be any number of reasons. Could be an economic downturn, in which case you might intentionally go below your target because that's how you're going to get through it. I mean, I think that's a bit subjective. Stabilization funds, we've covered. They did talk about, and this is maybe when we talk about the DOR report, it's referenced in on page 19 when they're talking about policies, but as a separate comment as well about considering different stabilization funds.
Right.
And I don't think that's particularly necessary. And we can, have a philosophical discussion about that. I mean, there's nothing magical about putting it all in one stabilization fund or having 2 or more stabilization funds. It's all the stabilization fund, and everybody can always change their mind as to what it's for. So to my way of thinking, it's just easier internally to earmark it and keep up a conversation with the select board and the finance committees on that.
I agree. I think it's more of a political and communications issue. How
Right.
you express the likely uses of funds later on.
Capital planning and debt management, they reference, which we cover. Then they get in on a couple, which I would consider overly specific for a select board financial management policy. Cash receivables and tax enforcement, those are typically departmental level policies, which we will be developing. We've already started, but the general financial management policy is requiring it. Those certainly are going to be covered in our practices. I mean, they already are, but we'll formalize that. Yeah, so I think we've covered everything they referenced in there, except for a couple things I just mentioned, or maybe a little off.
Thanks, Rich.
All right, thanks, Stephen. Sorry, I departed the scene there a little bit, some technical difficulty. Does anyone have any other comment? Oh, Peter, your hand is up.
I just put it up, Jerry. I just have a couple proofreading things and then one thing other. And Rich, did you catch that spelling mistake on the title page?
Policies?
Policies?
Did I send it out wrong in the?
I don't know. I didn't see it when you put it up.
No,
on the screen.
it's still there.
Still there.
So let's get that one. And then on
Got
page 2, the second paragraph, the following of the financial management objective of the select board seeks, select board singular, so it should say seeks to attain, right?
Yep.
Then on page 3, number 3 down towards the bottom, does it mean to say the last sentence of 3, the policy should reflect the statutory responsibility and authority of the town's designated tax collector, not town collector, right? / treasurer. No?
That's a good question. I'm gonna have to check, Peter. I
Okay.
do believe that it's a
Town
town
collector.
collector, which is a
Okay.
statutory difference. There is such a thing as a tax collector versus a town collector.
Okay,
Where a town collector can collect all town funds and a tax collector does just taxes. I think
Okay.
we are a town collector.
all right. And then my last thing is on page 5. And I was wondering, I guess what we're doing is kind of reviewing Rich's document and making our recommendations for the Board of Selectmen, right? So I didn't know on number 7, if we would like to recommend that that the receipt, that these documents be maintained and available on an ongoing basis and provided quarterly to the Select Board and to the Finance Committee?
Yeah, it's gonna be the same process, it's not any harder to send it out to 12
Yeah.
people as it is to, or 13 people as it is to 5.
I think that's a good idea. Peter, I'm surprised you didn't catch the second word in number 7. It needs an apostrophe after town.
Oh, yeah, the apostrophe, that's right.
Apostrophe with towns.
Yep, I'm slipping, Jerry.
You're slipping, Pete. You're my grammar. You're my proofreader.
So I've made that change, Jerry. Right now.
All right.
Hey, Jerry.
Yeah. Yes, Steve.
Rich, when you ascertain whether we're a town collector or tax collector town, on the town's website, one of the departments is treasurer / collector, And then the pros under it says the office of the treasurer / tax collector. So that doesn't mean that's necessarily right. You may still be right, but if it turns out you are, you might recommend that the website be updated. So I just
Right.
wanted to call that to
Yeah,
your
this is
attention.
one of those very small, minor nuances that, I'm like an idiot savant. I know all these stupid little things. Most people don't pay attention or think of it, but I'll follow up on it.
Well, we know, for example, the collection of water bills is not through this office. So that may be in line with what your thinking was. Anyway, I think we're beating this horse is writhing on the ground, so.
All right, anyone have any other comments or projected changes, edits, etc.? All right, do I have a motion to approve a recommendation of the financial management policies as we've amended to the select board?
So moved.
That was George,
Yes.
George,
I second it.
Rick,
Rick. Any further discussion? All right, I'll go to a vote. Peter,
Yes.
Mary,
yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Roy,
Yes,
George,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and Jerry is a yes, so that's 8-0. So Art, it's now in your court. All right, the next item on the agenda was a look at just a quick look or any updates on capital projects. I want to add one more before I forget and do it first. Looking at Art, because you raised it initially on the Nauset, dredging Nauset estuary. The last time we ever had any discussion on it, you mentioned a letter that came to the select board of Eastham and the select board of Orleans, and Orleans was going to have a meeting shortly thereafter. Any public resolution or comments that came out of that you can add today?
Not right now. If I'm not mistaken, Jackie had a meeting yesterday relative to it, and our meeting was canceled as a result of it or something. So, or it's the other day, and I have no new information on it.
Okay.
So there's nothing I can add to it. There's
Yeah,
still,
no, I was just looking for something, Art, not any words, not anything, as we see what Orleans is going to do and so forth. So thank you. We'll go to the water project, and one of the specific questions were roads, paving of roads in the phase 1, and also those in phase 2 that supposedly had a contract that they were going to be paved, and whether or not they will be, when, is there any timetable on that, and so forth. So Rich, do you have anything to add, anything on that?
Yeah, so I did follow up as to the timeline of the paving, and it would be looking at the completion of the current phases in progress. So we're looking at potentially 18 months. And depending on when the exact time of that work is wrapped up, it might be a couple months more, because obviously we're not going to do paving in the middle of summer type of thing. So 18 months to 2 years would be the time frame. The other thing, which kind of ties into one of the other items on your list here for capital projects, is it might be subject to whatever we end up doing with wastewater. There's a capital budget committee on Tuesday, and I think Jackie's plan is to give a little bit of update, but we're working on the you get a draft report, which indicates that, there's some decisions to be made as to what we want to do for potential sewering. It does look like there's gonna be a need for a sewer service area. And so to the extent that is on, say, phase 1 roads, you'd wanna line up repaving in conjunction with the sewer project. You wouldn't wanna pave the roads just to dig them up again for sewer pipes.
Right.
So that's another little bit of a bogey that we would have to line up. So once Jackie starts reviewing that draft of the report on wastewater and goes to the select board and the capital budget committee, we'll define the process for evaluating that and how we might want to zero in on what we ultimately might do.
Right.
Barry?
Any questions, Steve?
Rich, I'm not sure I understood what you just said, so let me ask you, does that mean there's at least a possibility that roads other than Route 6 might be implicated in a sewering project?
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Okay.
The large majority of nitrogen that needs to be removed is from residential Title V systems. So, most
Well,
of those
I
are
understand
off
that.
Route
I'm
6.
just impressed that it's potential that we'll go that far. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Well, our key watersheds are, and that, once we get into it, you'll have all the maps and everything. But obviously the Salt Pond watershed. So, from Town Hall north, past Schoolhouse Road up until around the Sheridan is the Salt Pond watershed. So lots of residential homes up through that area. That's our most highly impacted watershed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's kind of scary financial news, but anyway, any other questions on water? And I guess that was something on waste. I'll go anything further on wastewater. We probably had the full update from you, Rich, but okay. How about Rock Harbor? Tom, anything new on Rock Harbor?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we still haven't met. We are meeting next Tuesday. The meeting was rescheduled to September 7th. But through email, I've got some information I can give you. We recently got from the architect the latest and greatest plan, which we will be discussing at that meeting on Tuesday. And at that, the agenda also is saying that we will review the latest cost estimate at that meeting as well. So we should have some good information after that. But the big thing I'll share with you is I got another email recently from Shana Brogan. You all know Shana, who's on that committee with me. And she advised that we have received a grant from the Seaport Council for this project of $750,000.
Wow,
Wow.
that's great.
That's all I know about it. I'm sure it's on the agenda. We'll hear about it more on Tuesday, but she said she confirmed that it's a go.
Yeah, and we needed that, Jerry, to do the project. Without that, we would have had some problems. So we needed that.
And just to tag team on what Tom just said, that is the big news. It brings our available funds to about 1.5 million. So I've actually been talking with Shana a little bit the last couple of days. And the costs right now are a little bit over 1.4 million, which, sounds like, hey, you made it. But when you figure in contingency and a couple other little things, owner's project manager, things like that, we're probably a little bit short. And so Shana's working on a list of, potential cost savings. One of the things I actually started looking at the plans, and we have since everything's elevated for flooding, we have a generator. And so, the committee might want to look at the need for a generator on an elevated platform, 8 feet in the air. Is that really necessary? And so Sylvia will be at the meeting. He'll talk about his ability to deliver a portable generator. It's obviously not the same setup as something that's fixed, but it might improve the aesthetic and eliminate some costs that you can easily incur later on if you decide you really need it. But the bottom line is we're only going to have 2 people staffed there. Seems like it's easier to move 2 people in an emergency situation off the coast in a storm situation than it is to keep the building running. So that's something the committee can discuss on Tuesday. But so there'll be a little bit of cost cutting. And they also, interestingly enough, I think maybe been working behind the scenes on the Eastham Community Fund stuff and potential for fundraising. But that's another option that the town could look at, is to anything that comes up short is to look at the ability to fundraise for something like that. So there's a few options.
Rich, could you repeat exactly where the grant is coming from again?
Seaport Council?
Seaport?
Yes.
Seaport Council. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, anything else on Rock Harbor? Anybody have any other questions or comments or anything? Okay, we'll go to, the next item on our agenda is the, Peter, Nauset Regional High School building. You did send around to all of us, and I appreciated the, the current estimated time.
Right.
Lines, anything further to add? I know we were looking at, they were looking at trying to put a bid in to get some portable classrooms from another town. I don't know if there's anything more to add on that or anything.
No news on that yet, but, that's in the works. But that's also shows, there were 2 bar charts on that document I sent out, and one was for the, pretty much the design and development, all the plans and the bid documents and all, and the securing the portables was on that first one, and then the actually installing the portables and getting them up and running showed up on the one on the bottom of the page. So that's the timeline for everything at this point, and I can send it around again if people lost it or need another copy.
I'm frozen out again.
Can hear you.
That happened to me last time.
Go on now.
Where is Jerry? Is he in Chicago or where is he?
Yeah, Chicago.
The last time he came right back. He has not back yet. Well, here he is. Surprised Eastham has better internet than Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty bad here all of a sudden. I don't know what happens. All of a sudden it freezes. But anyway, Nauset Region, any questions on that, or Steve moved us on from that?
No, we were waiting for you with bated breath.
With bated breath, yes. Anything, I think there's more from Rich, anything new on either Tea Time or the Town Center?
I'll take them kind of together. Lauren and Paul have been working on an RFP document, a request for proposal document for a like a planning type outfit to come in to do some master planning work. And Shayna, as our procurement officer, has been helping them with that. And I saw a draft the other day and had some feedback. So we're getting that together. Hope to be able to talk about that soon and get it out on the street so we can start getting some responses and hire someone to do that work. But still trying to iron out the final details with Town Center. We did have some inspections done and there's some issues to resolve on that. And so Jackie is actually is on vacation this week, but she's been running some interference on that. So hopefully Tuesday we'll have some more information and results of where we stand exactly with finalizing that agreement to purchase.
All right.
Yeah, I have a question, Rich, on the inspections. I know we put monies into the original request contingency. I think it was 10% or something for the cost of fixing up some of those buildings, et cetera. Do you feel that that's going to be enough, or?
Yeah, I don't know. Depends on what the elements are. If it's just structural, building type stuff, I think it's plenty, but once you get into utility or sewer type stuff, that might be more cost prohibitive. But maybe there's if that's the case, then maybe that's something that we can negotiate as part of the final purchase and sale.
And I have another question. What's the timing for hiring the planning the master planner consultant, whatever?
I don't have the exact date, but it's this fall for sure.
Okay.
And whether it's well, definitely wouldn't be in September because that's probably when we're sending it out. I think tentatively the goal was the end of September, early October for the RFP to be available, and then to be a process of getting responses and evaluating them and all that stuff.
So RFP just September, October.
Right. And I'm sure that's something Jackie will want to brief the select board on. So, it might take a little, it's not something we're just going to whip together and throw it on the street. So it might, take a little bit longer than the usual process just because of the sensitivity of the project type of thing. Involving the tea time committee as well.
Right,
Thank you.
okay. Anyone have anything else on that? If not, the next item on the agenda is looking at future agendas, and the two things that we had on there was the Department of Revenue report, which I think Steve asked a question concerning the financial, that started a discussion on it. Rich had sent out to us kind of a score sheet on what's happening on it. I didn't necessarily have it on the agenda for today, but looking at it at the future, because we also wanted to have, I think, in our next meeting, the October meeting, an financial end of the year report. Is that still in your planning, Rich, to have it in October, our October meeting?
So touching base with our financial officers this week, the goal is to try to have our year end closed and all our systems rolled forward by the end of September. And I don't have to wait till everything to be done to start a report for a year end report. I can kind of do it concurrently. So if all that goes according to plan and there's no surprises, which I think is probably going to be the case, then we will should be able to do a year report in October, I would imagine. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll plan that in my head. When I do the agenda, I'll check to make sure we're still there to have it. Looking at the Department of Revenue report, I love the score sheet, but it'd probably be worth it to have us, the committee, hear more about some of the more detail or finer points that the Department of Revenue came up with, and some of our responses, and some of our reaction to it and what the town is doing. I'm not sure whether to have try and push for that in October, or push that off to November, so that you put the focus on the end of the year report for you, and then go to the DOR in November. What do you think, Rich? And then what does the rest of the committee think on that?
I think that if there's something that is relevant to the DOR report as part of the year-end compilation of results and how we present it to you, maybe we can knock them out, kind of two birds with one stone type of thing. And so it makes the reviewing the rest of the stuff a little bit easier in the next meeting. And if you wanted to approach it and just do a handful of items at a few meetings, we could do that too. But yeah, there'll be an opportunity to address some of those comments as part of a year-end presentation, I think.
Okay, and then we'll do that, and then any leftover I'll try and push off to November so we can get that done, because we really have to get into the capital plan and so forth, which is going to take some time for us. Anybody have any other comments? Anybody have anything that they would like to have added to a future agenda, not looking at new business for today, but to a future agenda, something we want to look into more deeply.
Jerry, may I just ask a question of Rich on the future agenda item we just discussed? Rich, did the town send a written response to DOR, or does it intend to, or is that just not the way these things work? What's the status of that?
No, they do, it's not like we're on a watch list or anything. They do have that program. They, if you're on their radar, they would require some sort of reply to their comments or their actions. This isn't that. This is just they did a review. These are their comments to, the community. Do with them as you please type of thing. But, obviously we take it seriously and we want to make sure we address it.
Okay.
Some seem like relatively innocuous comments, but they're actually the hardest things to resolve, surprisingly enough, because they involve, we're not a bunch of robots and they're not doing a bunch of widgets, right? So it's some of these things that seem easy aren't as easy as you might hope, but there's a lot, especially along the HR comments. There's a lot of work that has gone into those types of things.
Thanks, Rich.
Yeah.
Jerry?
Yes.
Rich, I know you don't want to get too deeply into this now, but just the number one on the score sheet there and in the document is listed as complete. The comprehensive review of the bylaws, that's not accurate, is it? We've done a comprehensive review of the charter, but the bylaws and their paragraph number one, DOR's paragraph, shows how the bylaws and the charter should be related. And I know we were forming a task force to look at the bylaws, but where's that stand, and why does it show as complete?
Well, that, of course, you picked the one that I didn't have much knowledge on.
Okay, sorry.
So according to Jackie, they're complete, and she thought they were complete in the context of what the DOR is referencing, I thought. So that,
Well,
you might have to revisit that if you had something else in mind, or maybe they had something else in mind and Jackie had misunderstood it. But I think she thought, when I asked her about that one, because I wasn't sure exactly what they were referring to, and I knew you had the Charter Commission and Charter Review and all that. She's, to the extent she thought it was a bylaws related to financial management, which is what the DOR was looking at. She thought that had been done.
Okay.
There might be other bylaws that, so perhaps there is some more to do on that.
Right. Speaking of the charters, my man Steve, did you look in before the meeting to see where that stands?
I did.
Yeah, I thought. Listen, I'm
It's
depending
still-
on you and Peter. Each one of you has a job. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I should have this pre-recorded. It's still pending third reading. That's as of August 12th, and I don't think they've done anything since August 12th.
Right. I don't think so either.
Well, actually, I've got
Okay.
some news. I put on my legislative aid hat and contacted some people, and it has emerged out of committee.
Yeah, it's had 2 readings already. It's ready to be voted on, but they have to go back into session.
Right.
You're right. I mean, it's real close. So they say.
We're close.
We're close.
Yes, and then you've got to go through and change every town administrator statement to town manager, but all of that. But we'll leave that up to Peter. You have your hand up.
No, Peter already did his job.
No,
Peter did his job.
That's right.
Yes,
He doesn't
Peter's
have to
job.
do it. Rich and Jackie have to do it.
Rich and Jack, no, well, I
Thank you.
understand, but I like to give Peter something to do, Whatever. Anyway, let's see. Anything new? The next item on the agenda would be new business. Anybody have anything they want to add? Anything new? None?
Jerry, I don't have.
Yes, Mary.
Oh, go ahead. I don't have
Go ahead.
anything, but at the last discussion, we had the issue of the tri-town assessment of $40,000 for the
Right.
pension
Okay.
issue, and it was back 2 years ago. What's the story on that?
So,
Okay,
luckily, I think I reported to you, that we had budgeted it in each of those years, but just hadn't been assessed it. Luckily, Tina, our town accountant, carried over and encumbered as a unpaid commitment
Oh,
from that year. Normally, you don't carry over an encumbrance more than 1 year, but in this case, it happened. And so we had those budgeted funds carried forward and available to us, so I was able to pay the bill.
So that-
wonderful.
fiscal year 20? Went back to fiscal year
21.
21.
So that's done. We don't have to go before to try and get a 80% vote or a 4/5 vote out of a town meeting. That's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. And
That is one.
I have another question on the police dispatcher, the additional cost that they are saying they might need on the budget because a dispatcher was being made a police officer.
Yeah, we're not gonna have to take any action on that. Unfortunately, that we're not gonna be able to make that change. It's a HR issue, so I can't say too much, but we're not gonna, we're gonna revert back to the status quo and we're advertising for an officer position.
Okay.
Okay.
All
It
right.
would have been nice if we could have executed it. And we might yet, but it might be next year if we have an opportunity.
Thank you.
Anyone else with new business? All right, hearing that, look at that, just over an hour. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
That's Steve. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And George?
Steve and George.
That was Roy, actually.
I thought
It
so
was
too.
Roy.
Steve and
All
Roy.
right. Steve and Roy.
Sounds like a vaudeville team, Roy.
Okay.
Yeah. Gone Las Vegas. All right, a vote, Peter,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Roy,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
and Jerry's a yes. Thank you all. Have a great day, and we'll see you in October. Enjoy.